on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Coming up at it's 7:36 now. Coming up later in the program at 8:05, we're going to speak with Kash Patel. We're also going to tell you who snagged the Snoop Dogg endorsement for president. That might surprise you.
I had been waiting.
I know. I'm Larry O'Connor. They can have Taylor Swift.
Yes.
We've got Snoop Dogg.
That's right.
Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Let's bring in Richard Goldberg. I got to take a breath because, we're talking about the Super Bowl and we're talking about Snoop Dogg and we're talking about various political things and culture. That's what we do on this show. But every time we address what's going on internationally right now and the disaster that has been wrought by this Biden administration, I just want to take a deep breath and bring in Richard Goldberg, who is a senior advisor at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. And it hasn't gotten – I can't remember things being this bad, Richard Goldberg. Even during the global war on terror, at least I had some foundational confidence that the United States was looking out for our best interests and the best interests of our allies. I've lost that at this point, given our feckless attitude toward Israel and the Middle East, and now this scandal coming out of the United Nations. Can you sort of unpack this for us? What is UNRWA, and why are we still even involved in this entity at this point?
Well, this is an absolutely horrific institution, founded back in 1950, part of an Arab ploy to destroy the state of Israel, the political warfare arm, really, the manifestation politically of the Arab armies trying to drive all the Jews into the Mediterranean Sea and keep that war going for generations. They call it a refugee agency, and you'll see that in the mainstream media. It's not a refugee agency. It's comprised of millions of people who aren't refugees. Many of them are poor, and it's not good to be poor, but they're being trapped in this refugee status. Why? Because they're raised literally to hate Jews, to hate Israel, to believe that one day their time will come to stand up, march through what we know as modern-day Israel, drive the Jews into the sea, and literally be, all these college campus slogans where you hear on TV and you see these people chanting for Hamas and from the river to the sea and all these genocidal things. These people are raised to do that, to actually carry out the genocide. So what you saw on October 7th is simply the logical conclusion of decades of indoctrination of an entire people to hate another people. And it gets even more insidious.
But we're paying for it through the UN.
Well,
we're paying for it.
Yeah, and also we've been paying for it this is generational. I mean, the current receivers of this money, their grandparents got it, their parents got it. This is an enormous legacy of this dependence on essentially this international welfare. Isn't that correct?
Correct. This is a welfare system that supports terrorism because they don't recognize Hamas or Islamic Jihad or Hezbollah or you name the designated foreign terrorist organization that we consider terrorists. They don't consider them terrorists. They consider them political movements. And so any of the money we give to UNRWA can go straight to any of those groups, anybody affiliated with it. And look what we see in the news. In fact, the Wall Street Journal just this morning reporting 10% of their staff in Gaza believed to have links to Hamas or other terrorist organizations. And you're right. By the way, President Trump cut them off in 2018. Right. We had spent $6 billion from 1950 till 2018, U.S. taxpayer money on UNRWA. President Trump said enough is enough. This is outrageous. We need to have a new organization. This has so many problems, from the indoctrination to hate to the terror finance problems. And what did Joe Biden do, one of his first moves in office? Restart the money, $1 billion since he took office.
So
$6 billion for 70 years, $1 billion since 2021. That's unfathomable.
We're speaking with Richard Goldberg, Senior Advisor, Foundation for Defense of Democracies. And yes, Biden gets in there and he reverses 3 key Trump policies. He reversed more than that, but specific to what we're talking about right now, he goes back to funding UNRWA, and we've now found out that employees at UNRWA took part in the Hamas terror attacks on October 7th. He lifted sanctions against Iran and funded that regime. And he lifted he continued funding, reversed Trump's decision on ending the funding for the government in Gaza, which was Hamas. So, I mean, those three actions right there led to not only the deaths of over 1,000 on October 7th and the imprisonment of American citizens still being held hostage, but then led to the deaths of these three servicemen as well as untold injuries of American military personnel. Two questions for you after laying it out there. Well, I'll focus it on one. You are testifying tomorrow, a House Foreign Relations hearing about UNRWA in particular. Is there any stomach for Congress to jump up and say, no more? We will defund this. We hold the purse strings. We are not going to pay one thin dime. We're not going to wait for Joe Biden to figure it out, number one. And I will throw the second question in there. Are there people advising this president who are literally helping our enemy? We know the scandal of the Iranian spies who were working along with the chief advisor to the Biden administration about our Iran policy. They're still there. Richard, what are there? I hate to ask it, but are there people who are working for our enemies that are currently in the Biden administration?
Listen, your first question is, I absolutely think there's momentum right now to cut off UNRWA. And I would say to House Republicans, the Senate Republicans, you should make it a condition of the supplemental that's being negotiated. Obviously, we're going to do everything we can to seal that border up, because that has to happen. But not a dollar should go to UNRWA in a multi-billion-dollar supplemental period, and we should cut it off for good and start looking at new solutions to actually help people get out of poverty and have hope for peace, not just a generation of violence.
Great.
On your second question, go ahead.
No, go.
No, on your second question, we know that this administration is littered with actual BDS, boycott, divestment, sanctions activists, people who hate Israel, who have dedicated their lives to destroying Israel. They hold senior positions in the State Department and the National Security Council. But even those who haven't done that, who are simply on the ideological radical left, I've had conversations with these people over many, many years when I was a staffer on Capitol Hill or in the administration or in the think tank world. They don't actually believe Hamas is a terrorist organization.
Oh, I know.
Look at a guy like Rob Malley, the former special envoy for Iran, who's now on leave because he's under investigation. He ideologically believed that Hamas, Hezbollah are political movements, and we're wrong to label them terrorists. So there is absolutely that ideological sentiment in this administration.
Richard, I was only just going to say that in addition to not funding UNRWA, I think we should just extend it to not funding the UN.
Yeah, anything that starts with UN. Yeah, let's just do that. We got to leave it there, sadly, Richard. I mean, I'm very passionate about this, and we could talk to you forever, but we got other things that we're jumping to as well. We will be watching your testimony tomorrow, along with Hillel Nur, who is on UN Watch. He's going to be a guest on this program tomorrow morning as well. And don't tell him that I mispronounced his name. Richard, great stuff, Richard. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And go Navy. It's 7:40. It's right there in his Twitter bio. It says, "Go Navy, beat Army." So I always like to. He is a good man. It is